I went to the movies last night. Okay. Harrison like me, loves movies. Now, he even likes them more than me. I could even see him working in the movies one day because he really is like big into the technical stuff. He wanted to see F1. I can't stand car stuff. I went and saw it. You know what? It wasn't bad. And Brad Pitt's in a heck of a shape for 61 years old. Wasn't a bad movie. And I don't like car racing. All right. Now, I went to Superman. I'm not your classic Superman audience in terms of Marvel, superheroes, that kind of stuff. If you follow me, you know I like movies, okay? Well written. Boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. Good triumphs over evil. I like a well written movie. I like a human story. I mean, you can give me any mobster movie. You can give me any Western. Shane is one of my all time favorites. The Godfather's the best movie ever made. I like Gone with the Wind. I like Casablanca. Okay. Good Will Hunting was a tremendous movie. I'll give you a recent movie that was good. A Complete Unknown was a tremendous movie. It's one of the best movies I've seen in years and years. I love the performances in that movie. I love that movie. I give that movie a 10. I loved it. Now, odds were in this Superman craze, and you go, and it's one of the few times you go to the theaters now and the theaters are alive. You're not there by yourself. There's actually people in the theaters. They're showing Superman on like 5 different things. So you go to one of these movies now that has reclining seats. You know, people bring blankets. They have pillows. You know, they're getting full course meals delivered to their seats. You know, it's not like the old days. And you got Dolby sound and special effects and all this different stuff to dress up the movie. You better dress it up because you know what? When you're going to present the kind of stuff that I saw last night, you better dress it up and really dress it up because it was awful. It wasn't bad. It was awful. Now, remember, I grew up on Superman. And to be fair, I'm not their core audience. I don't like sci-fi. If it's got spaceships, I'm out. If it's about outer space, I'm out. If it's got robots, I'm out. If you're chopping people up, I'm out. Okay. I am particular about what I like. And I'm not a sci-fi guy at all. I don't like superheroes. I've never read a comic book in my life. I read one. Okay. I liked this girl when I was in 6th grade, and she liked Archie and Veronica comics, Archie and Betty, Archie and Veronica. You know, remember that whole thing? Jughead, that whole thing. I read one of those ones. That's the only comic book I ever read in my life. I never had a comic book. I was reading the box scores in the Daily News since I was in 2nd grade. Okay, that was what I read. I used to get off the bus, get the newspaper in the morning. Newsday was an afternoon paper in those days. I used to get the newspaper in the morning, the Daily News, and read it in school. When I was as far back as I can remember, the nuns used to tell me to put it away. So, I mean, that was me, okay? So I was not your core audience here, but I did always like Superman. And yes, when I was working at the Fan, people said, they sent me things that I looked like George Reeves when my hair was different color. You know, I didn't see George Reeves when his hair was a different color, but we had the same kind of face, you know, a little bit. And George Reeves was a good Superman. I grew up on the TV show like so many millions of Americans. Now, if you were a kid in the 60s, remember, Superman was a hit show. Reeves ruined Reeves' career because Reeves wanted to be a serious actor. You know, he was in Gone with the Wind, as a matter of fact. He was actually in the opening scene. He was at 12 Oaks. He was actually trying to court Scarlett O'Hara in the movie. Now, it got so much that his popularity as Superman actually got him cut out of movies because when they test the movie, the people in the seats, when the producers and directors were looking for reactions, they would start yelling Superman, hey, faster than a speeding bullet, blah, because they recognized him as Superman. Just like you would recognize Gandolfini as Tony Soprano or Carol O'Connor as Archie Bunker. Everyone recognized George Reeves as Superman. Now, when I was a kid, Superman was in reruns. It was a show that was a hit. Big hit in the 50s. Okay. It was a show that ran from 52, I think, to 58, if I remember right. It was a core 50s show. So when I'm seeing it in the 60s, we used to get hit with the reruns, Rifleman reruns. Great Western. I love Rifleman. Wanted Dead or Alive. Okay. Richard Boone as Paladin. Steve McQueen. Think about it. Steve McQueen doing a weekly TV series. Wanted Dead or Alive. Paladin, Have Gun Will Travel. Richard Boone. Superman, Little Rascals, Three Stooges, who I never loved. I was not a crazy Officer Joe Bolton, Three Stooges, Channel 11. I was not a crazy Three Stooges fan. They were not my thing. Loved The Rifleman. Loved Superman back in those days. And it was on like every day and on Saturday morning. So you'd see all these reruns and you knew the shows because you'd see them over and over again. They probably had about 150 in the can. I don't know exact number that they had. Somebody out there can figure that out. But you'd see it over and over again. But it was always the same. You know, Lois would be out. In those days, they didn't have any real... Lois might have had a crush on Superman, but they didn't make a big deal about that. You had Perry White, the editor of the paper, going Great Caesar's Ghost. You had Jimmy Olsen with his little camera. And you had Lois getting in trouble and then Superman bailing them all out. Okay? Taking bullets off his chest, bending steel. You know, the whole deal. Okay? That was Superman. That was the Superman I remember from those days. And that's the Superman a lot of us grew up on. Now, we've really never gotten him, you know, that Superman captured in the movies. Okay? Never. Even the Christopher Reeve, who was a good Superman. He was handsome, played him tongue-in-cheek. He was big and strong and good-looking and handsome, the whole thing. Movies made a fortune. I'm going back to 78, you know. That movie, which Mario Puzo, they had as a screenplay credit because he was hotter than hot after the Godfather. You had Marlon Brando in the movie to sell it as his father on the planet Krypton, Jor-El. You had Glenn Ford as his earthly father. You had Jackie Cooper as Perry White. You had Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. You had Gene Hackman, Valerie Perrine, Ned Beatty. I mean, these are big actors in this movie. I mean, that's a star-studded movie. It wasn't a bad movie, but, you know, it was very campy, cartoonish, tongue-in-cheek. You know, it was Lois, Margot Kidder as Lois Lane getting quartered around by Superman in the air and, you know, can you read my mind? That kind of thing. It was okay. You could watch it. It was watchable. It wasn't great. You weren't going to rave about it. It was watchable. But I go back to the days of, I still remember. I can remember, you know, the whole thing, you know. Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman, a strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who disguised as Clark Kent, a mild-mannered reporter from a great metropolitan newspaper, fights the never-ending battle for truth, for justice, and the American way. That was Superman. My favorite episode ever was they were in a locked room, and all the regulars, the particulars, Lois is in there, Jimmy's in there, Perry White's in there. They're all tied to chairs. Clark Kent's in there, and the door is cement thick and they can't get out, and there's deadly gas leaking and you can see it leaking. And Superman and Clark Kent, who has always held tight to the disguise, says, well, I guess there's no use keeping this a secret any longer. And he jumps up and he takes off his ropes and he becomes Superman in front of their very eyes. And they're like, I knew it, he's Superman. Oh my God, you know. And then at the end, he hopes that he can reverse the gases by, you know, blowing air into the room and change their mind and they forget the whole thing, which is what they did for the next episode. But that was one of the, you know, loses the Superman identity, which was always a big part of this. There were two things. There was him overcoming evil, bullets, bank robbers, guys who wanted to blow things up. And there was keeping the disguise as the mild-mannered, meek, milquetoast Clark Kent, keeping his identity secret. That was big, always big. Now, I go to this movie last night. I read the reviews for some reason. The reviews were raving. I'm like, wow, this must be pretty good. Plus, I like Rachel Brosnahan because she was Amazing Mrs. Maisel. Now, if you watch that show, which is a very different show, but when the Amazing Mrs. Maisel hit its high notes, when they were depicting Lenny Bruce, or some of the episodes were utterly brilliant television. Brilliant. There was some years where the stuff really was bad, where they really jumped the shark. But most times the show was good and she was great. She won multiple Emmys and she was a surprising pick for Lois Lane. But I'm like, okay, she could play Lois Lane. What the heck? She didn't do a bad job as Lois Lane, but the movie is ridiculous. First of all, forget the political innuendos, and they're about as subtle as a jackhammer in the movie, but that's today's Hollywood. That's the climate we live in. Everybody's got to make a political statement. Okay, forget that part. You can read that in the reviews. I don't care about that. I'm not getting into that. What I'm getting into is this stunk as for someone who's a old-time TV show Superman guy trying to get entertained for a couple hours and wants to see Superman. This movie was pure torture to sit through. Torture. I mean, I'll tell you this. If my name was on the credits, I'd hide it. That's how bad it was. This was 2 hours of this new Superman. It was he wasn't Christopher Reeves, but he was okay Superman. 2 hours of him getting the crap beat out of him. Who wants to see Superman get beat up for 2 hours? He's getting beat up by everybody. Plus, you have other superheroes in the movie. I didn't go there to see some guy named Mr. Terrific. I didn't go there to see the Green Lantern or some lady named Hawk something or other. I don't even know who she was. Okay, these other superheroes who he calls on. Who are these other superheroes? This is a Superman movie. You want to see Superman flirt with Lois Lane, keep his disguise, and battle crime. That's what you want to see. And good triumph over evil. That's Superman. A little tongue-in-cheek, a little cartoonish, a little campy. Okay, this was unmitigated garbage. First of all, early on, there's robots. I don't want robots. Okay, I don't want robots taking care of Superman. I don't. Then there's a super dog. Who came up with a super dog? I mean, we all like dogs, okay? And I didn't like the dog getting beat on in the movie. It bothered me. But hey, who came up with a dog with a cape? When did that arrive? I watched Superman for years on television. I never saw a dog with a cape. I never saw robots. And in this movie, Superman's in trouble. Lex Luthor's getting the best of him. Everybody in the movie is beating the heck out of him. I thought Jimmy Olsen was going to take a shot at him. I thought Lois Lane was going to throw him out a window. I mean, he got beat up by everybody. He got the absolute bejesus. If you want to go see Superman and get beat up for 2 hours, he got beat up for 2 hours. This is Superman. And this had nothing to do with Superman. It had to do with superheroes. It had to do with a war in the Middle East. It had to do with a crazy Lex Luthor. And in the end, Lois Lane is trying to save him by going into the inner earth and a different layer of being with Mr. Terrific, whoever the hell he is. And she is driving a spaceship off the Daily Planet. Now, wait a second. Lois Lane's supposed to be falling off a building and being caught by Superman. This is not made for Lois Lane to be driving a spaceship to save Superman. I'm like, what the heck am I watching here? The dog was a bigger hero than Superman was. Lois Lane was a much bigger hero. And Jimmy Olsen, who used to be an 18-year-old cub reporter with a brownie camera, he's basically dissing supermodels every weekend. And, and has babes galore and is basically stealing the movie. Jimmy Olsen. And there are scenes, I'm telling you, Superman's in trouble. So what you have is Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, and Lois Lane going to the roof of the Daily Planet and getting in a spaceship and taking off to save Superman. I mean, give me a break. I'd had enough right there. You got a super girl cousin who shows up in a cape and she's stoned, okay, late in the movie. So they're setting her up for another movie. Look for some girl super movie coming out, And they basically alluded to the fact that she's always getting high. Okay. You got the dog who, like I said, is one of the big heroes in this movie. This movie is so bad that if you ask me to go sit through it again, I would want major, major cash before I could do it. Okay. It was pure torture. It was 2 hours of pain. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. And it had nothing, not at least the movies. And listen, I know the Superman movies weren't great. They made a bundle. Okay? Superman is always going to make money. He's one of the great iconic figures in American entertainment. It's a cash cow. He's always going to make money. You could put him anywhere. You can do Smallville. You can do Lois and Clark. You can make awful stuff, and you put Superman in it, and they're going to go watch it. And this got pumped to the moon. But when I tell you this thing was bad, I'm telling you, really, I was thinking about inflicting pain to myself just to keep myself awake. That's how bad it was. This movie was dreadful. And I have seen people glowing in their reviews, and I'm saying, what are you watching? How can this possibly? You got monsters in the movie. You got robots in the movie. You got other superheroes in the movie. You got a damn dog with a cape on. What are you talking about? You got Lois Lane driving a spaceship. What the hell does that have to do with Superman? Superman was, Lois gets in trouble investigating a story. She winks at Superman a couple of times. You got the innuendo that they like to, have a little extended relationship. That's fine. That's all tongue-in-cheek. It was tongue-in-cheek in the movies back in the 70s. Fine. Okay? A little campy, a little cartoonish. This was a disaster. Before you get into all the Middle East innuendos, all right, you got people claiming it's anti-Semitic. I mean, hey, I'm not getting into the political ramifications of it. Are there political ramifications and innuendos? Yes. Forget that. This is just awful. I mean, I actually think the people who wrote this must have been on some kind of hallucinogen before they decided that this was a wrap and this was what they were going to go with. The creative consultants and the writers in this thing must have all been absolutely rocked before they made this thing. That's how bad it was. I can't tell you. Even Harrison, who loves all this stuff, who goes to every Marvel movie there is, goes to every superhero, goes to every Fast and Furious, goes to every one of these awful movies that I can't stand. I've been going to movies with him since he was 2 years old. I used to go with Jack and Emily and Harrison. What I used to do was take them all to the movies to give their mother a break, okay? I'd get them whatever they wanted, their popcorn or whatever they wanted. They would sit inside me. I'd sit on the aisle seat, put my feet up. There'd be hardly anybody in the theater, and I'd go to sleep for 2 hours while they watched the movie, whatever it was. Whatever crazy, superhero or comic book hero or whatever it was. Who cares? Or any one of those wacky movies we saw through the years. The bottom line is this is terrible, and I cannot understand anybody thinking this was a good movie in any way. It was awful. I'm not even going to debate with someone who liked this, but I admit I'm not a sci-fi guy. Okay, and the movies that some people will reference in terms of comparing it to, I probably haven't seen because I don't go to the movies if it's a sci-fi movie. But this was a bad sci-fi movie and an insult to the Superman tradition, to the Superman legend. As someone who used to watch him on Channel 11 on Saturday morning, this was an affront to my senses.